What's going on, guys? This is just going to be a short video of sort of cool links that I've come across or that friends have sent me that are vaguely sysadmin, programming, scripting, security related. Take from this what you will. I'm basically just going to go through link by link, talk a little bit about why it's cool, why it's worth knowing about, and in the description I'll just post all the links one by one, numbered. So starting off with the map.ipviking.com. It's super cool. This is basically traffic, or a small subset of traffic from a huge amount of honeypots all over the place. And you can see which, oh my God, from where the network traffic is coming and where it's going, so where the attack traffic is going. It's just hilarious to look at and awesome. It makes it look a little bit one-sided. I'm guessing the bias is because they have more honeypots in the US than in other places, but I'm not 100% sure about that. So you can basically see the attack targets, attack sources, and it makes it look like the whole world is trying to destroy the US. So if you're looking for funding and you're part of an American three-letter agency, this is probably what you should send to your supervisors. That being said, tricks with UNIX history. This is pretty cool. It's just small tricks that you can use, but it can be pretty useful to just know this stuff. So last command, or echoing the last word of the last command. Sorry, not echoing, but just yielding the last word of the last command. Just stuff that's a little bit stranger maybe and potentially useful, and a little bit different than what you're used to from just, Control R and start typing to search for a command that you've typed in the past. Perhaps worth knowing. Like this, for example, is pretty interesting. Running the last command that contains the string that comes after the keyword that you type in after that. And I never thought I'd say this, but a pretty interesting article and well written on file formats. Interesting because it just sort of gives you a historical overview. It's funny sometimes, it's disturbing at other times, and it's written by a pretty good writer. This is the guy who started the Tilde Club things, Paul Ford. So if you read other stuff of his, I think all the Tilde Club stuff started with a post that he wrote on medium.com. So Paul Ford, maybe it's a different Paul Ford. I'm not 100% sure. Anyway, so file formats. You should know about this stuff anyway, and if you can get something that's reasonably entertaining to read, all the better. Okay, this one's cool. A peek into the massive scale of AWS. So Amazon Web Services, the cloud, they sell virtualized infrastructure, and I always sort of figured, well, maybe they have enormous data centers and maybe they're all over the world, but they're pretty much, running racks of servers pretty much like anybody else, whether that's, regular server, rack servers, blade servers, what have you. But the reality is a little bit more interesting. They are really running a custom, they've customized almost every part of what they run in their data centers because they have such specific needs. So the machines are completely customized. Their networking gear is totally customized. So they're not just using like off-the-shelf Cisco switches or Juniper switches or what have you. They've really just removed all the stuff that they don't need so that they don't have to deal with those overhead, the processing overhead or simply the cost of having these things in the equipment. So yeah, huge custom infrastructure, and it goes a little bit into the fact that networking is like one of their main problems because it's one of the things where the cost isn't going down. So compute cost and stuff is getting incredibly cheap because you still have Moore's Law and processing and multi-core chips and on and on and on. But networking is the issue. Anyway, interesting read if you've got probably like 10 minutes. And I always like these kinds of articles where you kind of follow something down the entire stack to kind of get a feel for how the whole system works together. So this is like an application call, and you follow basically just a Ruby hello world down to what's actually being written in the C code that's being called, the system call that's being made, all the way down into kernel trapping, etc., etc. It's really mercifully short, and it gives you sort of just a very, very basic overview of the different layers and how they sit on top of each other. Another article by the woman who wrote the first UNIX history time saver thing that I posted, Best UNIX Timesavers. You know, I know that there's not a tremendous amount of depth to these kinds of things, but they are useful to know. And just this table, there's a table at the bottom, which even just makes this entire article worth it. But basically, there's some really cool aliases that you can set up for yourself here. And where is it? Where is it? Oh God, where's the table? Oh, right. Bash shortcuts, right here. You know, Command L for clearing your window, etc. Just stuff that I'm embarrassed to know. A lot of these I didn't know. Anyway, useful stuff, just useful background. It will make you faster, even if you just know a couple of these. Nethack. If you haven't heard of Nethack, it's an incredibly old game, older than I am, I think. People have been playing this forever. Everyone says, oh, it's the greatest game ever. You just don't get it. Not much in the way of graphics, but tremendous depth, and it's a pretty interesting history of it. I actually wasn't really interested in playing this until I sort of read this and thought, geez, it might be just interesting. Anyway, it's been around forever, and this can give you a small idea to see if, you know, maybe you want to play it. Shout out to Dwarf Fortress, of course. Remote work. If you're an engineer, software engineer, but you could probably get away with a lot of this as an admin, so if you're on the systems operations side. This is more, I guess, targeted at management level people, but it should give you a good overview of how to kind of sell remote work to maybe a manager or someone who's not familiar with the concept. I know that when I moved to Europe, it just seemed like, at least in the places I was living, they were just a little bit more behind on, you know, letting people work from home. It just seemed like it was about 5 or 6 years behind the US in terms of, you know, cultural acceptance of this stuff, and realizing like, holy crap, this is actually really efficient when people get to work from home and make their own schedules and stuff, as long as you hire good people. Crappy hires are going to waste time no matter if they're sitting at home or in the office. They always find ways to surf Facebook secretly and waste a bunch of time, have lots of meetings. It doesn't matter. But it's a pretty interesting look at an organization that, you know, had a legit remote work program and how that was. It's just a funny little blog keeping track of the curl being piped directly into sh, often with sudo or as a root user. So the title of the blog is People Telling People to Execute Arbitrary Code Over the Network. When you put it like that, it seems like a really bad idea. And in general, as a general rule, it is. The problem is that even if you're doing it over HTTPS, the packages aren't verified and some kind of attacked the site and uploaded something evil. But basically, it's downloading and immediately executing some code. It sounds very slick. It looks nice when you have a little link, but it's a pretty bad idea. This is just a blog where people send in places where people are telling their users to install stuff this way. You know, it's not the end of the world, but it's probably also not the brightest thing ever, especially because there's a lot of really good package managers and you can build stuff yourself, or lots of easy ways to safely get verified packages from a verified source as opposed to doing it this way. Anyway, from here, if you want to get a little bit into the, if you're not sure why this is a bad idea, you should read this article. This will explain the sort of technical details, but it's more of a response to criticism of just saying that's bad. When people say, well, you know, if you do it over HTTPS or whatever, it's better, but it's really not. So for the reasons I mentioned before, if this is new to you, read this thing and it'll explain why curl into sh is bad, even if it's curling an HTTPS URL. I'm just going to read you the description of this because it's just so ridiculously cool. Acme is a programmer's text editor, shell, and user interface. It runs on a virtualized operating system. Until now, it's actually sounding a lot like Emacs, but then it says Inferno is the name of this VM that runs hosted on Windows. So this is basically an entire stack that these guys build. I don't know. I haven't really played with this. It just sounds so cool that I need to download it maybe on my Windows machine and see what it's all about. It sounds ridiculous. Just because it's funny and it's kind of about breaking things and seeing what happens, which is a very good security mindset if you want that. Breaking Madden, just check it out. They basically try to break Madden in many ways and see what happens when you do things that the programmers didn't anticipate, and hilarity ensues a lot of the time. Okay, really cool. Dinosaurs Pen. It's a blog that has a lot of historical computing pictures, primarily. So like deck machines and Vaxen and, you know, Just really incredible pictures just of computing history. Worth taking a look. Like that? A little bit of RAM. Probably less than you can, probably a couple megs of RAM in there. And I could buy, 8 or 16 gigs of DDR3 for $100. Cool stuff. And finally, just some shell scripting resources, I suppose. linuxcommand.org, pretty interesting. A lot of it's free online. If you just want to get some more background, I know I'm doing a series on this right now, but the more resources, the better. And this is an excellent free resource, so go check this out. Finally, codeschool.org. I gave a shout out to this in the comments at some point. This is an unbelievably good resource. I honestly think this is one of the things I started with when I started programming and getting more into computer science-y stuff and learning how all these things that I use every day work underneath. It's sort of, you can get a lot of what you need for programming and software development from here. So it starts with an intro to programming, but it also just starts with stuff that's useful for sysadmins as well, like how things are represented, like numbers, bits, text in a computer, how the hardware works, how an operating system is kind of put together, system calls and that kind of thing. And then you learn some JavaScript, and you learn, I think, a made-up language, some HTML and CSS, JavaScript, Python, yay, and object-oriented principles. There's a lot of good stuff on Unix terminals and shells and how they kind of talk with the system underneath. Some philosophy behind it. You get some C, Java, please avoid the Java, of course, general database theory, and then server-side programming. And it uses Web2Py, which is actually a pretty interesting little framework worth taking a look at. And then you've got some computer science-y stuff like data structures, searching and sorting algorithms. Cryptography basics, you should absolutely understand cryptography basics, just the concepts. You don't need to know any math or get really deeply into it, but you absolutely, if you are alive, you should understand a little bit about cryptography. I mean, if you're using a smartphone and other shit and you're trying to communicate in a way that is reasonably secure, even if it's just with your family or for work or whatever, you should know a little bit about crypto. This has actually been pretty quiet for a while, but it's an unbelievably amazing resource, and I can't say enough good things about this, so go check out his channel and donate. I donated a while ago, and I think you should too if you enjoy the stuff, because the information there it's an education in and of itself. Okay, so that'll do it for the links. I know this is a ton of links. I think in future videos I'll have a little bit less, but this is several weeks worth of cool stuff that I've seen out on the net. If you have some cool links, I guess for the next episode, I'm going to do this pretty regularly from now on. If you've got cool links that you think should be featured and should have a wider audience that takes a look at them, feel free to send them along. Just either leave it in the comments or I guess send me a message. But otherwise, these links come from me, sysadmin friends, security people I work with, and a wide variety of Unix and Linux geeks. I'll see you guys in the next one.